That was quite the introduction, but yeah, this is what happens. Like I do tend to work a little bit too much. Even after giving birth, I saw a baby here, and I was like, yeah, good for you for waking up so early and bringing the baby here. But I just want to say first, thank you very much. I've been so inspired by the Creative Morning speakers, and I feel nowadays we need that inspiration and a little bit of help to keep moving forward. And when I've heard the Creative Morning speakers, I thought, yeah, I'm inspired. I wanna do more. I wanna achieve more. And if I give you 1% of this today, I would be super happy. Actually, my morning started with a young girl that I don't look like this usually. Like this is all makeup. So she was wonderful, and she was telling me how bad she feels about herself because she's a new mom. She's working really hard. She was there at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I tried to tell her, do you know, today, just try something to do something that actually increases your positivity and do something to be inspired. And by the end of it, I felt like I've done 1% already, which is kind of really cool first thing in the morning. So when Mark actually gave me the topics for the year, or whatever was left of the topics, like I immediately gravitated towards wonder. And it's been a key word in my life. I am very passionate about what I do. Whoever's been with me on shoots knows that my eyes are wide open. I'm super excited. I'm ready to go all the time, no matter how people are tired. I'm like, let's do one more shot, always. So in a way, my biggest pet peeve has been when people tell me, oh, you stop being so like wired up and like going, and stop being a child somehow. And I'm like, I don't want to grow up. Like, I don't know whether any creative would want to grow up and be an adult. And Neverland is so much more interesting for the creatives. So I'll try to use this. I'm not very good at it. So the first thing I thought, of course, was Wonder Woman. Like when I started doing the talk, and of course, like, I mean, I'm often on rooftops, like my hair is blown by the wind. I have a camera in my hands. I feel very poetic. There you go. I did this specially. Hopefully I don't screw up the mic. So I don't look like this on the shoots. The architects do not appreciate when I show up in my Wonder Woman suit. I think that would be quite... I might give it a try on the next HCMA, maybe shoot like that would be quite interesting. So why do I relate to her? Forget about the funny part is I try to be the best always. I try to break boundaries, to be the best mom, which I'm definitely not because I obviously feed my kids McDonald's all the time. And I try to be like the best photographer. I kind of don't have enough time to even breathe, which you can notice even now when I'm talking. I talk so fast, like nobody can hear what I'm saying. But do you know, I feel like as females nowadays, we have to keep that wonder to be able to be creative because life beats you up every single day. You have to, like, I had a crying child at 5 o'clock in the morning in my bed, and I was like, great, this is the perfect morning for this to happen. But do you know, when I was watching Creative Mornings, the teaser that Rick and the team did, I thought, I say something over and over and over again. Be a child, be like a child. And I was sitting here on the first row thinking, wow, why am I keep saying this? Like, what's the point? And I thought, who are my friends? Who are the people that I admire the most? They all look at life in a childlike manner. They're all passionate, they're all a little bit crazy. I'm not pointing at you directly. But they're also extremely successful in their own fields. And why they're successful is because their minds work in a very, very different way. They operate in a completely different way. So talking about children, I did an experiment, or actually, they did an experiment with me. I went to my son's school, and they wanted me to show architecture. He apparently said that I'm his famous person. I thought I've achieved something in my life. I'm somebody's famous person. So I went and started showing architecture to the most terrifying audience in my life, a bunch of 6-year-olds. They're sitting on the ground, they're looking at me, and I was like, okay, like I have to show them architecture, and they're wondering, what is this woman doing? Why is she showing us photos of buildings? What's the point of all of this? But I thought I'll just give them the most colorful, the most shapely buildings, the most beautiful light, and I want to see what they're going to do. So I showed them this. This is the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. by Sir David Adjaye, who's one of my favorite architects, one of the most charismatic, amazing people I've met in my life. So what were the questions? Why is the building upside down? I was like, okay, go figure. how long it took them to stack the trapezoids. I was like, okay, I don't know either. And then they said, did the architect spend a lot of time cutting all the figures on the front of the building? I was like, where am I supposed to know all of those questions? And I thought, my world is this small compared to theirs. Did I stand in front of this building and think about this? Think about what is the meaning of actually all those shapes? What is the meaning? Why is the building looking like this? What inspired David to do it? And we gave them building materials afterwards. And not concrete, we don't give 6-year-olds concrete. But they started building. And they started building really cool stuff. Some of them were a bit wobbly, but like still quite interesting. They were inspired so much by all of this. I can see it here. Oh, why am I turning? I don't know. But the one thing we noticed is they worked as a team. They started working as a team immediately. Like they built together, even if someone individually did a building, someone else will come and say, okay, I want to help you. And I thought, Creative Mornings, what do? We listen to someone, we turn towards each other and we start talking. But if Mark doesn't force us to do this, are you going to sit every day and actually pull around? Well, you will, but most people won't. So I felt like their process is so amazing. So there was only one child that wasn't part of this. And he's amazing, and I love him so much. He's autistic. And I thought, did I get through to him? Did I actually explain well what I'm doing? This was his picture. It's 3D, it's unique. And this kid, for me, was that representation of exactly what we're missing in our lives. We don't see things this way. Do you see a building this way? Well, some of the architects here probably will, but it's like most of them don't. So it brought me to think, okay, we have a routine. Every single day, we go to work the same way. Same way. Sometimes when I don't go in the same path to somewhere, I think, okay, like I'm lost probably if I don't move in the same direction. We have the same mugs on our desks. We do the same things over and over and over again. The kids have wonder days. They never actually think about what is my routine, what is my responsibility. They're just literally creative. And I think we need to create exactly this. We need to create wonder days for ourselves. And Chagall has a very good quote. I cut it a bit. It's not the full quote. The dignity of the artist lies in his duty of keeping awake the sense of wonder in the world. So we're not only responsible to actually create wonder in ourselves, we're responsible to create wonder in the people that are viewing our art, our architecture, our sculpture. So I think this is very important. My first real sense of awe was when I was 4 or 5 years old. My dad was a film cameraman, and he was, we're talking about communist Bulgaria. So he was part of a group of people that were extremely creative, but they were totally against the government. They spoke against the government, and I was constantly told, do not say anything in the house, anything that you hear outside of the house. I was not allowed to talk whatsoever. So he refused to be a member of the Communist Party, so which meant he was never given his own film to do. He was never allowed to be anything but second and third cameraman. So he used to, like with me, sit down and print photos to sell them so we have enough money to survive. And my first sense of awe was when I actually saw when he took the blank piece of paper, put it under the machine, and then put it in the developer. That first image when it came up, it was one of the most spectacular things I've seen. And that sense of magic has stayed with me all of this time. When I'm pressing the shutter and when I'm looking at the back of the camera, I feel this way. I feel, wow, like I have created something magical. And everybody knows one of my biggest inspiration is actually clouds. Like when I travel, when I'm going around, I feel like I always try to be inspired. My wonder moments are when I'm looking at clouds. And I have a lot of, oh, I did something, there you go. I have a ton of cloud photos that everywhere I go, I try to photograph clouds as much as possible. And I started, on Instagram, I post a lot of them, and I started actually receiving messages from all sorts of people saying, I saw the clouds and I thought of you. So I thought, okay, I've looked up, I've seen something, and this is the result. People are actually seeing a little bit of wonder from my end. I have a lot of them, like a lot of them. So I started bringing a little bit of the clouds in my own work. And this is a shot that Mark and I met during this beautiful shoot for HCMA. And I thought, okay, I want to do this shoot. I was 9 months pregnant. I was so grumpy. The first time meeting Mark, so I was very excited about the whole shoot, but he wanted me to shoot something completely different. So I waited to actually see how this image is going to work. So it ended up on the cover of Architectural Record. And I'm always right. I'm actually going to take this off because I'm getting really warm. I'm stripping off already. Okay. So I received, it ended up on the cover of Architectural Record, and I received this email from the editor. Also, just curious, we received a note from a cranky reader wondering if we photoshopped clouds onto the cover shoot, which of course we didn't. He says you wouldn't see clouds since the curtain wall is translucent polycarbonate above the first level. But we aren't seeing clouds, aren't we? My first thought was, wow, we can manipulate the viewer in any way we want to. Of course, this is the shadow and the light that happens from a tree that is projected on the polycarbonate. So I had to show him the full range of photos before he actually said, okay, I believe you. This is exactly what you were doing. Which was crazy. Another shot that became really, really popular, I feel, in Vancouver, and I'm going to come around here because I don't see it. Like, I talk about being a diva. I asked the architect to wait 2.5 months for me to actually photograph this building. I said I'll photograph it only if we see clouds in it. Because you've seen this building, this is the Park Casino in Vancouver. Like, it really needs to have that beautiful reflection that happens to be able to create a really strong image. They shouted at me a lot, but at the end they agreed that they'll wait. So like at the end we got this image that won awards, and it was one of those key shots for the building. Here, this was Oxford Circus. I was 7.5 months pregnant, laying on the ground. And yes, it was quite interesting. And I thought, wow, this is pretty amazing to be able to create that juxtaposition. But all the people thought, she is crazy laying there on the ground. And that sense of wonder, I used to work for VRX Studios, that sense of wonder, they're the biggest provider for imagery for the hospitality industry. And that sense of wonder took me to incredible places, but also got me in a lot of trouble. I got kicked out of Covent Garden about twice, the Vatican 3 times because I was photographing. My equipment was taken away from me because I was shooting too close to MI6. So I think that this was all explains very well. So something magical started happening actually when I was photographing. When I wanted the woman in red to pass by, like when I wanted someone incredible to pass by, they passed by. When I wanted the woman in the red bike to pass by, and of course, you can see I'm a huge fan of red. Like I have it usually everywhere. So I thought, do we project what we want in the photos, or do we actually? Does it happen and we just don't see it, ever? Like, I think that this is the one thing that I've been asking myself. Do we actually see this is at lunchtime in the Surrey Library? Do we actually ever look up and look at that burst of light? And same here. This light happens only between about 12 and 12:30 around June, July, August. Does anyone actually see this light? I think that we actually don't have a look, we don't anticipate, and we don't see things like this. So I started creating my wonder moments. Like, so this is a Kengokuma building. I thought, if I learn about the tea ceremonies, this shot is going to be so much more amazing. And again, it was one of those awe-inspiring shots for people. And this one is, yeah, I know, this is the Chan Institute of Performing Arts. It was an incredible, incredible shoot. I thought, how can I create the most universal dancer or an artist? So we asked them to give us the Meninat, the full body silver unitard. And this is what happened. Like, I put him around the building, and then we photoshopped the image, and I thought, yeah, this is what will create that awe-inspiring shot. And I have a few more minutes, correct? Okay. So I have, this is one of my favorite quotes by Stephen Hawking. Look up at the stars and note down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. Be curious, by Stephen Hawking. And I want you to close your eyes for a second. So this is what a true sense of awe sounds like. Like Jim Haven, who's an amazing speaker, gave me the audio file to play it. So I feel we should feel this way every single day. And if I can kind of wrap up with something, I want to tell you, today, take a different path to your work. Try to do something completely different to actually achieve that wondrous moment. Just try to create your own realities, because it is our mind that creates the world, and we need to create that wonder for ourselves, for sure. Good.
Now we're going to have a conversation for the next 15 minutes or so. Who has a question from that? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Jackie. I'm an engineer in the buildings industry. And I look at Vancouver and I think the skyline's terrible. I dislike most of the architecture here. And I think that there's a lack of wonder. And I'm wondering if you can comment on that, if you agree with me, if you don't agree with me.
Well, it really depends when you look at the city. Like when you go on the Granville Bridge and you actually drive there, like at sunset, all of the buildings are glowing. It's the same thing when you have really crazy sky at the back, a dark sky, and then the buildings. It really, really depends. I mean, yes, like Vancouver has a very specific look to it, and now things are changing. There are a lot of buildings that are coming up that are going to be very, very different for the skyline. But sometimes I feel like in a city where there is so much rain, I would have loved to see a little bit of color. I love color. So like as much as I want to say, yes, everything looks perfect in a specific moment, it does. But something red, something wood, something else would be so much better. And you do see so much more eclectic buildings when you go to some of the European cities, and in New York and in San Francisco sometimes. So there is opportunity here for a lot of great buildings to happen. So yeah, I actually do want to see something different as well, for sure.
Hey, Emma.
Hi.
I got a question for you. Yeah. So photographers have a particular gift where they walk through the world and they're just not, they don't have blinders on like most of the rest of us do. Those blinders are wide off and they're just looking around at everything, just absorbing the world in a way that most of us don't really. So I'm wondering if you have any tips for those of us who aren't photographers on how we could, even if we are going through our routine on the way to the office the same way every day, how we can throw those blinders off and just be a little more aware and mindful of our visual surroundings.
Totally. So most of the time, I've almost broken my neck quite a few times because I always look up. Like I always look at the buildings, look at the reflections, look at everything else. And also, like sometimes you can walk through the city and at different moments, what I was saying before, at different moments you have the same gray wall somewhere in the alleys that could be hit in the light in different ways. So it is mainly noticing how the light changes. Like, I mean, very often I just close my eyes and I just wait for that shadow and light to cross my eyes, and it's still beautiful, So I think that the main thing is actually to look around properly, because I feel like we're so into our thoughts. Like, I mean, we walk, we have problems, we have issues. Everything that is going on is kind of making us feel like we're in a little bubble. So for me, actually, I'm more creative because I try to see the same wall over and over again. And I've done this with a wall in my house. I wanted to see how am I going to react, because the issue is not the things that excite us when we're walking through different cities. The issue is the fact that in our familiar environment, things get too familiar. And we need to actually break this a little bit to be able to be creative, like in no matter what we're doing. So that's kind of my routine. My routine is push myself every morning to say, okay, I'm going to actually do something and see something different.
Emma, you and I were on a shoot once, and you were there, and I got there early, and you and Tina were already there. And by the time I left, you stayed until sunset precisely for that moment.
Yeah.
And I think that was the day we had a conversation setting up a shot where you talked about hard work and your early days and how the struggle you had when you were. Oh, by the way, Tinu sends his best and his love and his congratulations from Mumbai.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, he texted me just now to tell you that.
That is awesome.
So when you were shooting for his team at VRX, and even before that, tell everybody about your work ethic, because that was an interesting story. I think
Yeah,
that relates
well,
to wonder in a way. What you're
It
saying.
does. It does. So in the beginning, what happened when I came to Canada is nobody wanted to hire me. Because I was overqualified and didn't have Canadian experience. So I don't know what this means because I just arrived in Canada. So and I had multiple
You
degrees
have a
in
PhD
photography.
in photojournalism.
Yes.
That must be intimidating for some people.
It probably is, but I knocked on every door, and the only company that hired me was VRX Studios. And I'm sorry to give up their secrets, but I was paid $135 a day for 12-hour days. Like we were on the road 260 days a year. I was on my own. And photograph hotels, destinations. And I felt so grateful because in Bulgaria I was a TV presenter, I was on national television, and I got 50 Canadian dollars a month. So I felt like I'm hitting the jackpot when I got the 135. And of course, like everyone else who worked in that office, though, looked at it in a different way. For them, this was so little for such a long days of work. So it is a change of perspective. Like I came and I worked super hard because I thought somebody gave me a chance. And also I thought, okay, like I'm paid so much money to do this job. Anyways, when I started my own firm, I didn't have a car and I didn't have equipment. So I had one camera, and everybody keeps asking me, what is the equipment that we have to buy to be successful photographers? I had one camera that was my husband's, and I had one lens, which was really bad. And I used to go and rent a cooperative auto network car, which was 4 blocks away from my house, go rent the equipment, so go to the rental place, go to the shoot until quite late. And because we couldn't keep the car for more than 10 hours. I had to go return the equipment to my house, go return the car, and in the morning continue that process until the equipment is returned and I'm back in the house. So it didn't faze me for 1 second. It doesn't, because I'm allowed to do something that I absolutely love. So no matter what, I didn't care. Like, yeah, I spent endless hours. I probably made no money out of it. But at the end of the day, I was given an opportunity to photograph great architecture, and I would forever be grateful.
But how would you translate that to advice to a young creative professional or a photographer, an aspiring photographer, a female young aspiring photographer in the audience today?
Just push harder. Like at the moment we're told, like there is this instant like satisfaction through Instagram, through even I'm telling my kids they can binge watch something on Netflix. We used to wait for a week for this to happen. You know, every week we needed to wait for that episode to happen. So I think that the issue is nowadays we're too much in a hurry. We're in a hurry for everything to happen. Everybody looks at me and says, okay, like, I mean, she's done this, she's successful, she's traveling around the world, she's photographing, but at the same time, if you see how much work went into all of this, so don't expect it to happen overnight. But if you put your 10,000 hours, I do believe in this. If you put your hard work into it, it will happen. Just don't expect it to be happening immediately. That's it. Like I was an apprentice, and nowadays, like I apprentice for months and months and months, and nowadays I get photographers message me and say, how much do you earn? What quotes do you do? Like, what is your marketing approach? I'm like, can you imagine me, like 12 years ago, actually contacting any of the top photographers and asking them what is everything except their social insurance number, you know? Yes, so I think this is the problem is we're just too much in a hurry to get somewhere. And it's so good when you get somewhere.
Well, this might be more of a photographer question, maybe some of your creative process, but I think one thing that, like, not from Vancouver, but I just feel like there's so much rain here, and in the summer, it's so easy, the light is so beautiful, you stare at it, it's so amazing, but how does the winter work for you, especially for architecture, for clouds, or for sky, or do you just, like, location scout when it's summertime and then wait a year to shoot it, or just use 20 lights on a location? I don't know. That's my question.
We do create sun, by the way. Like I do create sun. Like I treat myself as a god almost. I do create sun. So like especially in Vancouver, because yes, the expectation is that you're going to get those shots in the 2 sunny days of the year. Like you're going to get the most spectacular shots. So we do use a lot of strobes from outside. Actually, we line up strobes when we're shooting inside to be able to create sunlit interiors. Or sometimes we have to wait. If the location really requires sunlight, we do have to wait. But we try to push all of our office shoots, all of the shoots that don't require a lot of lighting. But I have an architect here who wants to shoot in the rain as well. Like, I mean, we photographed, and I disagreed with him multiple times about photographing, and the image actually turned out in the rain, turned out spectacular. But this is, again, a very, very specific way we look at the world. We think that we have to photograph in sun. Why? Like, again, the kids question, like if a kid was here, they'll ask you, why do you need to photograph in why can't you take the camera out? Why can't you create a good image in the rain? And like, I'm starting to break from this and try to experiment more with actually having to see how a building looks in the rain, you know? We need to experiment, and that's part of the wonder process, I think, the creative process.
I want 2 more questions from this side of the room. There's one.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question about, I guess, like mental health and the balance between finding wonder and like the day-to-day needs. I guess being a mother of 2 and being super busy. Like, where do you find time for self-care? How do you define self-care? And like, and if you don't, I guess, where do you think you get your energy from, if not just this boundless, you know, lake of wonder? I guess just some advice for those of us who have very, very busy lives and are trying to carve that out.
Yeah, totally. Well, wine is the first thing that comes to my mind, like a lot of it. But honestly, do you know, like it is the hardest thing when you actually feel guilty all the time that you're not there for your kids. Like, and I do feel guilty. At the same time, when you're all possessed by this incredible feeling, when you're photographing, it's an adrenaline rush. So it's almost like it's an adrenaline thing as well. You're almost addicted to feeling something special, to looking for wonder. And there is no balance. Like if anyone tells you, we were just discussing this morning, like we were looking on Instagram of those perfect women with their perfect makeup, with their perfect children and their perfect cooking. I cannot cook, I cannot do anything that actually is considered motherly, but I take my kids to shoots, and I show them that I can work my ass off and I can achieve something. So in a way, like if anyone tells you that there is a search for balance and self-care, there's no self-care as well. Like at this times until your kids are young, you just need to push through it. That's it. And not go crazy and drink a lot of wine. That's it.
When you showed, my name's Peter Ladner, when you showed the picture of clouds, and you said, I have a lot of these pictures, it got me thinking about all the pictures you must have that nobody ever sees, that we all have, that nobody ever sees, and then on the other side, all the garbage pictures that are pumped out all the time on Instagram. Can you talk a little bit about exposing your work to people and how, what you think about that? What do you do about all those pictures that you've taken nobody will ever see?
Well, I think Instagram has become a huge thing because I can actually do stories and actually show the clouds in real life. Definitely, I have friends here in the audience that are designers that have told me, okay, let's do something with those images. Let's print them, put them in houses, do something with them. But again, I have no even a single moment for this. For me, the fact that I can showcase a cloud and I can do an Instagram story and somebody could actually look up at the sky and look at something different, for me, that's kind of giving me enough satisfaction that I'm giving people something else. Because so many people in the beginning told me, I haven't even noticed the clouds. And I'm like, how have you not noticed the clouds? Like, I'm a member of the Cloud Appreciation Society of the United Kingdom.
That's not a thing.
Yes.
Is that a thing? Is that a thing?
It is. Yeah, we're 4,000, around 4,000
What?
crazy people. It's true.
A club that stares at the sky.
Yes. A club that's there. We have manifestos as well. We have manifestos that actually fight cloudless sky. Yes, we do. And I was on the cover of the International Meteorology magazine. So yeah, I'm really passionate about this. It's not only architecture. I know.
That's awesome.
I know.
Okay, Emma, we're out of time. What's the one question we should have asked you?
One question you should have asked me: how am I even standing here with the this is do you know? I still don't realize how this happened and how people can get inspired by photography. And like, I'm super grateful to the Vancouver community that actually is so engaged with me. And I honestly, like you were talking about the balance, people giving you a little bit of compliment, a little bit of themselves a day and tell you, okay, you inspired me to do something, or I liked your shot and I really want to do something with my life or with my photography career. This is kind of enough to keep you going, because you know that you are inspiring a little bit people. Hopefully. Thank you.